So, next thing, back to the suspended fish a little bit. This is the big one. Everyone knows about this, the Alabama rig. I found a couple things I like to personally do that have helped me get a couple more bites. For one, I always throw it on braid. You know, if at first I was real hesitant to throw it on braid because, you know, braided line and clear water. But if the fish is going to come up and bite this thing with all these wires and 200-pound wire, they don't care about the braid. So that's just my thought. But, you know, if you guys are a little bit skeptical, and this is going to work with any braided line, you know, if you're throwing a frog or throwing a topwater, anything, I like to take a Sharpie, a permanent marker, and I like to go up a couple feet, you know, 2 feet. And you can see this is aqua green Power Pro. See the coloring of it, and then it's hard to see where I blacked it out, and that's the same braid. So it's going to blend in a little bit better. And again, you can throw that with any technique. You're just going to hold it tight. You're going to paint it a little bit with the permanent marker, and it ain't coming off. So, basic setup with the Alabama rig. I like a 7.5 to an 8-foot rod. You know, depends. This is a little more finessey of an Alabama rig, so this is a medium heavy rod. But you definitely want enough horsepower to land some of these fish and just to cast this thing. So here in California, you know, in a couple other states, we're limited to 3 hooks. And you know, I'm a firm believer, the more baits on this thing, the more bites you're going to get. You know, I don't like just having an Alabama rig with 3 baits. If I'm going to throw it, I'm going to have 5. So what I like to do, instead of using dummy bait, well, these are dummy baits, but instead of using a jig head just to add additional weight, I came up with a way where you're not going to destroy baits, you don't have to glue, you don't have to waste jig heads. This is a owner centering pin. And this works great. So what this is going to do, this thing doesn't weigh anything. You're going to take your bait, you're going to put it on there, screw it right down. Now, this Alabama rig's less likely to snag. There's no hooks, there's no jig head the fish are going to see. It's just a little bit less clutter on this thing that's going to make it more natural. And again, you're going to want to put it straight on the swivel, and it's going to swim just normal. It's going to be perfect. And you know, say you're fishing a shallow point. Well, now this Alabama rig doesn't weigh as much as when you have 5 jig heads. You got 3, so you can throw it right up there and catch fish. Now, I have tested everything from the bass tricks to the hollow bellies to big swim baits, and I prefer littler baits myself. It just seems like you're going to catch the same fish, but you're going to get more bites. And littler baits are going to do it for me. Now, what I like to do on the Alabama rig is, you know, there's different patterns. You know, there's a star pattern, there's 2 down and then 2 up spread. But on every one I throw, I'm going to have a bigger bait in the middle. And if you can see, that wire's a little bit longer. It's only an inch longer, but it seems like that's the bait that 90% of the time is going to get a bit. You know, so I might have 2 different colors on top. This is a Jackal Glossy Shad and a Silver Shiner color. That's going to be up top, and then I might have a Threadfin Shad color on the bottom. And then I'm going to have just a little bit bigger bait, something for those fish to really key on and bite it. And again, this is totally legal in California here. Also, you know, the bass tricks work great. What I like to do a lot of times throwing this thing is fish it really slow. You know, I might throw it out, let it hit the bottom, and just creep it back. So then bait selection comes in. It's very big. These Glossy Shads are new by Jackal, and I'm not just pumping this because I'm sponsored by Jackal. They're unbelievable. They're super durable. You can see you're not gonna break them. They last forever. And the cool thing about this Alabama rig, it gets tangled all the time. But the cool thing about this bait is the tail. When you come up and look at this, there's so little plastic right there. So at any speed, when you pull this thing through the water column, it is going to kick, and you're going to get a lot more bites. I could throw this thing out there, just click the bail, and it's going to start kicking, and you're going to get a ton of bites. So again, you know, this time of the year, the fall, the winter, you know, Diamond Valley, anywhere you guys are fishing to up north in California, this is an absolute must to have. You got to keep them honest.
Does anyone make a rig with more than 5 wires?
Yeah, they do. I've seen some that have like 10 wires on it in the south, you know, just a ton of wires. You know, I prefer, like I say, at least 5. You know, if you can find one with 6, probably going to be even better. What's that?
You glue the body at all?
You know, I do, but I do sometimes. These ones aren't, but I mean, if you're gonna try to make it last, it seems like it's gonna definitely help. Another thing, real quick, before I put this thing down, it seems like to me, when you're putting weights on this, you're gonna want your heaviest weight on the bottom, and that's gonna actually turn this thing, and it's gonna make it run straight. You don't want to say an 1/8 ounce here and a 1/4 here, then it's going to be turning upside down. Again, too, this is a custom-made one, an Alabama rig, but I think this is pretty important up here. This has a swivel, so when I cast this thing, it doesn't matter if it lands on its side. With that heavier weight on the bottom, it's going to proportion itself out, and it's going to swim straight. And again, the more natural, the better. I am, yes. And like I said, not just, I'm a Jackal guy, but that is the best Alabama rig swim bait I've ever seen. I was fishing Orville last week, and my team partner, JR, and I were laughing because I caught so many fish on it, and I never even changed the thing. I must have caught 10 fish on one glossy shad.
You say the heavy weight on the bottom. When you have like the bigger weight in the center, is this the heavier weight, or are these?
The ones on the bottom, I always have yes. Now those are, the way that one's set up, there's 2/4 ounce on the bottom, 1/8 in the middle, and then nothing on top. So the heavier weight, depends on how you're going to rig the thing, but you definitely want them on the bottom. That way they're going to go down, and it's going to proportion itself out. It's going to run a little bit straighter. Yes, no problem.
On your other rig, I didn't catch the weight limit, the weight on the braid.
Oh, yes. I like a 10-pound for a spinning rod. I mean, 10-pound Power Pro, that's all you need. That's going to get the job done. You're not going to break it off. That's 4-pound diameter. And then, I generally run from, on a spinning rod, especially if it's clear water, 6-pound to an 8-pound test leader. 10 at the very most, but lighter line, the better. The more bites you're going to get, and I always say you got to get bit first before you can catch a fish. I've seen guys, fish behind me, co-anglers throwing 15-pound test, and they never get bit. They're going, how come you're getting so many bites? And I'm using light line.
Do you find that the Power Pro bows out way more than if you just use straight fluoro?
Like as far as bows out on the water?
Yeah. You know how it seems like fluoro seems to tend to fish much quicker and have a straighter angle to the fish?
It does, and that's just because, the braid will float. And that was one of the problems I had when I first started throwing it. I would throw it out there, and the wind would catch it and kind of get off. So you really just got to kind of position the boat really good and make a direct cast in there. So, but I mean, the sensitivity and the bites you're going to get. I remember fishing years ago at Orville, dragging a tube in like 50 feet of water, and I kept getting bites, and I was using regular CXX, the green CXX. And kept getting bites and setting the hook and reeling and cranking, and there was so much stretch in that line. I lost so many fish, and we ended up getting 3rd place, lost the boat, and I go back and I fish it, and I mean, you don't even have to set the hook. You just kind of reel set, just give it a little reel, and I mean, those things are pinned. Same thing with the jig, with anything. And again, once you're going from Power Pro to fluorocarbon, hook set is everything. Don't forget, my team partner the other day, we were fishing, he let out a behemoth hook set, and it's going to snap. There's no stretch. So you really, especially with light line applications like the little, the little owner hooks and stuff like that, you just need to kind of give it a little sweep and reel. Keep pressure, because it's going to skin hook those fish.